Today's Q&A is about bread. And the question is, it seems like in times of the Gemara, people consider bread to be kosher wherever you got it from. And the question is that still true nowadays? So the answer is like this. Bread is made from flour and water, and those are kosher from any source. Most of the other minor ingredients that are added, like yeast, should preferably have hashgacha, but they're so common that they're kosher. And they're often actually batel also that they don't pose a really serious concern. However, other ingredients that are added, like milk, cheese, raisin juice concentrate, and oil, could be milchigs or not kosher, and they would not be batel in the food. And those, therefore, ingredient-wise, those raise a red flag. They need hashgacha. And then there are other ingredients that are not so obvious what they are, like emulsifiers and dough conditioners, or things with these chemical-sounding names that most people might not realize that they could be kosher sensitive, but in fact, some of them are. And I just want to give an example to show how what unexpected items might end up being used for these items. And the example I'm going to give is something called L-cysteine. It could be made from human hair, and it could also be made from chicken feathers that are boiled together with the chicken, the nevela chicken, the chicken that was not slaughtered, and boiled together with it to get it out. Now, it happens to be, it's way too complicated for today, but it happens to be that most people consider L-cysteine to be kosher, even under those circumstances. I only mentioned it to show how you don't think of human hair as turning into a dough conditioner or chicken feathers, but lo and behold, it can be. A simple loaf of bread could have human hair. Who would think that that's what's going on? So even if we have someone who looks at the ingredient panel, he understands food ingredients, he looks at it and says, this is clean, there's no problems here with the ingredients, still there's reason to be concerned, and that's because the ovens and other equipment being used to make this loaf of bread are also used to make other breads that have milk or cheese or other things that might be not kosher. So therefore, we recommend people should buy bread only with hashgacha. Now, I've mentioned a few times that it's common on a commercial level that milk is added to bread, to non-kosher bread. So I want to mention that Chazal specifically said it's usher to make or eat bread that has either milk or meat inside of it. And that's because bread is such a staple food, and you eat it at so many different kinds of meals that people assume it's parv. So if you would make it milchigs or fleishigs, that potentially could lead to mistakes. Like someone could eat a kolkot sandwich with milchig bread, or he could put cheese in a cheese sandwich with his fleishig bread. So Chazal said bread has to always be parv. And if you make it with meat or with milk, the bread is completely not kosher. It's not just that you can't eat it with the other type; you can't eat it at all, even by itself. Now, 3 other things to think about relevant to bread for some people or for some situations. And the first is, if at the time when the dough was created, it's owned by someone Jewish, then challah has to be separated from it. Now, at home, that's pretty easy. A person makes a batter of dough, they separate challah, but it has interesting complications when it's done in a commercial or retail bakery that's owned by someone Jewish. Second is, bread is made from spring wheat. That is to say, it's wheat that starts growing in the spring, and it will potentially be chadash coming from about Rosh Hashanah time until Pesach. So consumers who only want to eat yashan, have to make sure they buy bread from bakeries that take special steps to make yashan bread. Either they store their flour, or they use winter wheat and they modify it in a special way to make bread out of it. But for the people who care about yashan, that's a second thing to be concerned about when they're buying bread. And the last is, there are many consumers who only eat bread that's pas Yisrael. Pas Yisrael means that a Jew participated in the baking in one way or another. And some people are makbar on it all the time, and other people are careful about it, particularly for Shabbos, Yontif, and Asher Shemei Tshuva. So, at home, it's easy to do that. The Jewish person just has to be involved easily, turn on the oven, be involved in the baking. But when you do it in commercial bakery, there are different opinions about what it takes. It's more complicated, and there's different opinions about what it takes what's good enough, what's the participation that's good enough to make it pas Yisrael. That's not for today to explain, just something worth mentioning. And it's also something that potentially differentiates one hashgacha from the next in what their standards are for making food to be pas Yisrael.